I really don't understand what's happening. I feel like I'm losing my mind. No one else is helping me, my family won't listen to me, and my friends think I'm lying. I honestly did not know what to do until I remembered this subreddit. I used to read loads before I got my new job a few months ago, and I do recall other people having similar problems as to what I'm going through right now. And they got help from other users. So please, anyone at all, can you help? I don't know where else to go. Well, I better tell you guys what's been going on. At this moment, I'm safe and in a hotel room at the edge of the city I live in. It's about 30-minute drive from my flat. I think he's still at my flat. I mean, I saw him standing in the kitchen doorway before I ran out the door. I truly do not know if he has left or maybe followed me here or what has happened to him, but all I know that it was not the man that I fell in love with. He was smart, charming, and absolutely adored me. Everything I knew fell away for just a moment when we first kissed. That was a year ago, and he was still able to make me feel incredible every day since. We couldn't live together due to financial reasons, but he still had the time to come over to my flat every day, and he stayed most nights. My parents treated him like family almost immediately, and my friends got along with him just fine. It was perfect, until he came into my flat yesterday with a broken nose and a large gash on his forehead. I quickly cleaned him up and tried to get him to go to the hospital, but he resisted. When I had asked what had happened, he looked stumped and then looked away from me with a concerned expression. I don't remember. I knew that he was lying, but to bring it up in that moment wouldn't have solved anything, so I let it be. That night, he stayed on the couch, not to get blood all over my bed or on me during the night. And yes, I knew I shouldn't have let him fall asleep with a concussion, and that was dangerous of me, but I was so tired and not thinking straight, and he seemed fine. I woke up early in the morning to the sound of the television and walked down the hall to find him sitting up and watching the news. I assumed he was possibly looking for a news story on the incident that could have caused his injuries. I walked behind him and was suddenly hit with a strong, metallic-like odor. I went around the couch to discover that he had ripped all his bandages off and there was dried blood all down the side of his face. The strangest thing, though, is that even after I rebandaged his head, the metallic smell was still so strong in his presence. The rest of the day was fairly normal. He just sat and watched the news all day. I called into work so that I could stay home and look after him because no one else could, and that's when I realized it. After fixing us both some lunch, I sat down on the couch next to him and really thought about it. I couldn't believe it. He had nobody else that I knew of. I hadn't met his parents, his flatmates, or his friends. The more I thought about it, the more I scared myself because I realized we had never talked about his family or his childhood or what he does for work or his friends. I knew something was wrong with me, but I needed to test it. I turned to him and asked if he had called his parents yet. He looked at me with confused eyes before saying, "Speaking of parents, we should invite your mom and dad over for dinner this Friday." Perplexed, I asked a more discerning tone if he knew any of his friends were coming over to see how he was doing, and he replied with, "How come you see your work friends more often than your old school friends?" I kept asking more and more questions about his personal life and got nothing but him dodging the question with extremely vague answers. At this point, I was standing and almost shouting at him. I took a moment to get a hold of myself before asking him, "Who are you?" That's when he turned slowly to face me with this sticky grin. The blood from underneath the bandage started oozing out and trickling down his face, and his eyes were just so wrong. I started crying. He stood up and pointed his finger at me and saying in a low voice that I had never heard him before, "It's all about you." He lunged at me, trying to grab me with both arms, and I threw the plate I was holding right at his bleeding gash on the forehead. He fell back for a moment, and I slowly stepped toward the kitchens. But then the metallic smell just came like a gust of wind straight from his direction. I gagged and ran towards the kitchen in search of a weapon, so I grabbed the pan off the stove and turned to see him standing in the kitchen entrance. His eyes were so menacing, I couldn't help myself from whimpering. And in the same low voice, he started to speak. This wasn't supposed to happen. You must forget. He was breathing loudly between words like he had never breathed before. You remember now. We failed again. Sorry. He ran towards me so quickly that when I tried to move out of the way, he caught my arm against the cabinet. The adrenaline inside me forced me to hit him over the head with the pan as hard as I had ever hit something. And he fell to the floor. I was not waiting around for anything, so I grabbed my phone, my wallet, and keys from the coffee table and ran out the front door toward my car, turning around just in time to see a glimpse of him standing in the kitchen doorway staring at me. I have never gotten in my car and started up so quickly before. I drove for what seemed like a very long time. I was probably just paranoid that he was right behind me the whole time, but eventually I gave in to the facts that I had gotten away. Luckily, I was near the edge of the city, so I pulled into a car park, to the inn where I am now staying at. I should have called the police right then, but in the moment there was no one else I wanted to talk to except my mom. She answered almost straight away, and I burst into tears, trying my best to explain what had happened. It was like I was speaking in another language because she did not understand me at all. So she put me onto my dad, who reacted the same. But it wasn't like I was speaking another language, it was more like they didn't know who I was talking about. Defeated, I hung up and called my best friend from work. She didn't believe anything I was saying and was acting defensive. It was like I was making the whole thing up. Again, I gave up and threw my phone on the passenger seat. I sat in the car for about 5 minutes thinking about what had just happened, when I was spooked by a group of teenagers laughing near the car park lot. I remembered I should probably be somewhere safer. I checked into the hotel room and walked up to my room. Luckily, this is the best hotel that supplies phone chargers, so I can type all of this out without worrying about battery. I'm going to take a nap soon when I finish writing this. I will go to the police station afterwards because, wait, the smell is back. The metallic blood. Oh my god, I think he's here. Somebody help me. I'm calling the cops, but I need to post this just in case. I'm so sorry. My boyfriend and I have been together for almost 5 years. We met at freshman orientation at Penn State and have been inseparable ever since. Senior year, we both decided that it would be cost-effective to move in together. Our post-grad plans were similar. We'd take gap year and get jobs, save money while studying. Him for the police officer's exam and me for the LAAT, and hopefully jumpstart our careers in either Philly or New York. Since graduation, I have been working in a law office in the file room, doing his clerical duties and trying to absorb as much information as possible. Johnson's job was a security officer and had emphasized his job as a successful trial for the real deal. Our apartment in Philly is a 2-bedroom with a living room set up primarily for work and study. Each of us has taken possession of a desk and a small bookshelf we bought secondhand for the room, filled with WIP tests and study materials. I want to be clear that I've never looked down on Johnson's career choice. I always believed that his bravery and willingness to sacrifice everything to protect others was admirable. While he's always been eager to take violence and rather one-dimensional side into dealing with criminals, until now, that's never been really relevant. That said, that while the LSAT is a sea of text that your mind can barely discern without having trained it to glean the proper information, the police officer exam has many sections that are picture-driven. That may show you the profiles of a criminal in disguise and ask you to identify the true perpetrator. It may show you visual scenes and ask you to observational questions regarding those locations. It may give you multiple pictures of criminals with varying characteristics and ask you questions that define traits from each one. And lots of the questions refer to generic individuals as the victim or perpetrator of crime. Both tests essentially analyze your sense of dedication
in just different ways. It's important you know the catalyst, because in my mind, only at today's events only occurred 2 weeks ago, when Johnson and I went out to dinner. It was our favorite Chinese place, the one we had gone to multiple times. As always, after an hour of sober eating and conversation, we slipped into discussing our future careers. Johnson mentioned that he had hardlined approach with criminals, and I, who had always wanted to be a public defender, joked about how every arrest he would conduct, there would always be me waiting in the wings to find the truth behind the alleged crime. That's when Johnson muttered something that threw me off entirely. "Consider yourself dead, bitch." To be fair, I was fork deep in my steamed chicken and did not literally watch his lips move to form these words, but that's what I heard. "What the fuck?" I shouted, spewing sesame chicken all over my shirt. "What?" Johnson replied eerily. "What are you yelling at me about, Annie? I didn't say anything, even after your defense attorney trade." So I let it go, because, hey, what else am I supposed to do? What else wouldn't stigmatize me as the crazy girlfriend? We've both always been rational and cool-headed, and I wasn't about to lose my shit over a simple miscommunication. "Bitch, I will gut you like the overstuffed pig you are," immediately followed. It was so out of character, it took me a minute to catch my breath. "Jay, this isn't funny. Stop messing with me. I've done nothing to warrant this hostility, and I swear, if this isn't a joke..." I was cut off with, "Annie, are you crazy? You're screaming in the middle of a restaurant, and I can guarantee you that we can never return to... What's going on with you?" Needless to say, at the time, I was embarrassed. I blamed myself for starting or perpetuating a fight in the first place, and honestly, people were staring at me in the restaurant like I was crazy. I had been sleep deprived, taking another long LSAT practice tests daily after work. I love Johnson, and I know sometimes we disagree on some things, but overall we're very compatible and we support and love each other. Under this delusion, I am now trapped in my apartment in fear for my life. You see, we never questioned each other or collaborated on our studies. Johnson and I have simply coexisted in pursuing our careers until now. Tonight I was dicking around today in our living room office. Honestly, just dancing to some Bruno Mars, don't judge. And I bumped my hips into Johnson's desk enough to jostle his prep books. I didn't mean to look at them. I didn't mean to pry, but I'm glad I did. In the place of any and every victim or individual meant to be met with a violent fate was me. The entire fucks in individuals were eradicated, their names scrawled above as Annabelle. Images of criminal, theoretical murderers were scrunched up with pictures of my face, hazardly pasted on in their place. Barely illegible writing above these criminals, me, were statements such as, will be apprehended and fated to justice. I spent at least an hour scouring through Johnson's books. There wasn't a single moment or decipher tied to a victim of crime or violent murder that has to be punished and apprehended that hadn't been replaced with my name, photo, or description. I locked the door from the inside this entire time, both to investigate so I could write this. I need someone to know what is really happening to me. Saying that I'm a victim to my boyfriend's obsessive murder plot just doesn't have a ring of sanity to it. I can hear Johnson smashing at the door, and I'm finally feeling scared. I never saw the signs, I never questioned our relationship, and now when he breaks through, I will just become another story in the police officer's exam. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Alright everybody, stay savvy.